to talk today just a little bit about the animation industry. And this is actually a topic, we're going to do a part 1 today, and I think on Monday, before your big, nice Thanksgiving break, we're going to do a part 2 on the animation industry. A lot of you are really loving animation. That makes me very happy. Maybe you're thinking about, should this become my career, right? What kind of things should I be thinking about if I want it to be a career? What is the state of the animation industry? Yeah, wait until you see my first slide.
I don't want to look at it.
You don't want to see it. Oh, it's too terrible. No, there is definitely hope, okay? There is hope. And I won't say anything else. Just know there's hope. Okay, so on the schedule, right, we are going to, on Monday, have an in-person playtest. If you are here in person, we're going to finish up that animation industry lecture. We are also going to play some of your games. We're going to share links in the Discord server, and we're going to play some of your projects, whatever you've got. We'll give feedback. I'll give you feedback. I'll tell you whether I think you're going to be able to get the points for X, Y, or Z. So that could be very useful. If you are not here in person, it's going to be a bit harder to play your game, but you might be able to throw it into the Discord server. We might be able to play it on Twitch if you want us to. So Monday could be kind of interesting. You are in the middle of that custom game project. This is the last thing you really care a lot about. During this middle section, from Monday to the following Monday, Thanksgiving break, we hope that you won't put much time at all into your project. We just want you to relax and rest and then come back into that final week all charged up. I'm going to share with you some marketing materials relatively soon so that if you want to, we can help get some of your friends and family, people who would really care about seeing your project, we can get them to that showcase that's going to happen on Monday the 8th. Okay? We'll do a briefing and a few lectures, but basically we're all going to be in here. You're going to set up your laptops, bring a good charge if you can. Get your game running on your laptops, and then we're going to spend 90 minutes or so hopping from game to game, everyone running around playing these wonderful games. You will also get a chance to stand next to your game and watch people play your game. So basically, half of us will be playing the other games, and half will be watching their games be played, taking notes, getting feedback, and then we'll swap midway through. For those of you in 494 or 440, you've seen this kind of thing before. It tends to work out really well, especially if we get a lot of people. So, all right, let's keep going. Okay. So, a reminder. Start knocking down those requirements early if you can. Something I really like to do on projects like this is I like to go for that MVP. You know what that means? It's kind of an entrepreneurial term, minimum viable product. It is the minimum set of things necessary to hit what we need to hit, to check the boxes to get the points. That will give you a lot of information about how difficult it is to build certain features, how much time it takes. It'll also lock you in to 100% on that final project, and then you can focus really on what do I want to be here, right? How do I give my project a great flavor? I can create more characters, really interesting, weird characters if I want to. Things that don't meet all the requirements, that's totally fine. But you want to get those points as quickly as you can, I think. And then you can go and you can really get crazy after you've locked those in. Okay, so does anyone have any questions or comments? Is anyone in this room doing the 494 extra credit? Working with another team? How is it going so far? What's it like? I'm curious. We've never done this before. Lots of messaging so you understand what's happening? Okay. Have you sent them a character or any models yet? Okay, so now you're creating stuff. Okay, cool. Rock and roll. Karar, you're in 494 and in 298. So which game are you contributing to?
It's the Thief game.
Thief game. Okay, paranormal thief game, ghost thief.
They're a little unresponsive, so I imagine they do the same thing we do, and we're
Yeah.
at the very end. But we're getting they want a couple of models for their environment.
When I'm gonna show you a little bit of my freelancing with musicians today. But one big problem I have is that I will ask for something from a freelancer. They will get a little bit, enough to start, and then they finish a draft and they want my feedback, right? But I'm not available for a week plus. That's really tough. It's tough being a freelancer. It's very stop and start. So what we try and do these days is I will try and write up everything the freelancer needs to know so that they can hopefully get as far through the process as possible before they need my input. Because my input is not always coming very fast, okay? Lots of fish to fry. So anyway, let's go ahead and let's do our little mini lecture on the animation industry. And again, this is going to be much thicker, much more fleshed out next year. But this is just the situation. I wish I wasn't in pilot training right now. So if you, if you know much about basically any of our creative industries right now, then this slide probably resonates a little bit with you. It is an extremely interesting time to be a creative professional. I have a question, actually. I'm really curious. We got lots of you in the room. I'm actually really happy about that. It doesn't feel very good to talk to an empty room. I'll tell you, in 440, that's usually a pretty small class. I had a year or two ago, I had my first ever lecture where no one came to lecture. Zero. Zilch.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Oh, you were in that, weren't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Sending a video to the Discord as we're panning around the room and nobody's there.
Yeah. What happened during that lecture? Do you remember what I did?
No.
It's like the most rebellious thing I've done in my life. I lectured for like 20 minutes and said, all right, that's good enough. Bye-bye. And I just bailed. There you go. So there's this thing where, if the professor doesn't show up for 15 minutes, we get to leave, right? Well, guess what? Reverse Uno card. Okay.
I'm surprised you lectured for 20 minutes. I thought you just would have called it.
Yeah. I felt guilty about leaving really quickly, so students going to hang around for 15 minutes and before they leave. I'm going to hang around for 15 minutes before I leave. So there you go. Okay. So I actually want to take a quick poll. Okay. So it's 2025. I want you to raise your hand if you listen to music on YouTube, Spotify, or other digital services without paying. Okay. Paying with your time doesn't count. Okay. How many of you use ad block, by the way? Ooh. That's artist on artist violence right there. Okay. Anyway. All right. We live in very interesting times right now. And, in some ways that's a good thing or could be considered one. In some ways, not so much. But right now, in 2025, I was telling my students in 494 this morning, I said, I don't think you're the unluckiest generation in history, but you're not lucky. You're definitely not the luckiest either, okay? It is a difficult time to be a student entering the job market. It just is, okay? I would not trade my graduation date for yours. You got some challenges, okay? But you're tough. We got new technologies that are causing a lot of disruption and a lot of chaos right now. It's making a lot of people very nervous, and I think for very good reason. We have, in particular, artists getting wrecked, okay? Lots of people getting wrecked, but artists just always seem to get the brunt of it, don't they? And so their work, in particular, is becoming very commodified. And the value of a lot of artists' work seems to be decreasing. And that's a really frustrating and very scary thing. And I would say, even going more particular here, we're seeing a lot of artists get their work kind of ripped off and copied and sold, sometimes for nothing, sometimes for pennies in the best case. It is a very, very sad time. We see job losses, especially in creative fields, left and right. In some artists, aren't dealing with that. Some artists have found ways to kind of use technology to gain a bit of an edge. The business models for all of this are heavily in flux in any case. And so I want to ask, do you know what I'm referring to? And you don't need to say it, right? You know what I'm referring to, right? You know what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the music industry in the 2000s, okay? And in particular, I'm referring to what digital distribution platforms did to musical artists in the 2000s. Because it has been a while, but it was an absolute crazy time, okay? Chaos abounded. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Copyright. Copyright has always been a powerful tool for kind of protecting artistic expression. When you have a physical object, a physical piece of art, it kind of has inbuilt copy protection. It's a little bit difficult to take a physical object and copy it and then distribute that object. So the artist who manufactures the physical piece has a lot of control over what they're going to do with it. Now, over time, this copyright has weakened. It has lost its strength, okay? Records, right? Records were a physical piece that were manufactured, and if you didn't have a record, you couldn't play the music. If you didn't have a specialized device to play that record, you couldn't play the music. Copying these records, not super easy, okay? There were, I think, machines and people who could do it, but it was very slow. Violating copyright was a very difficult thing to do in this era, and it was expensive, okay? And that's if you didn't get into trouble, if you didn't get caught and the law didn't catch up with you. But over time, the mediums that held artistic works, that contained the artistic works, changed. Do any of you remember this? Because I barely remember this from my childhood. My grandfather had a very old car, and it had a cassette player, a musical cassette player built into the front of it, and you didn't have CDs. You had these strange little discs that you often had to actually rewind, okay? Physically rewind if you wanted to play it again. And it would take some time, actually. I think sometimes you could hear it rewind, and you would hear this very strange, you'd hear the audio being played backward really quickly. And you would take these cassettes and you would put them into devices like what you're seeing here, and it would play music, okay? It often couldn't play you very much music, like maybe, 30 minutes or so. You were feeling pretty happy if you could get that. And it was possible to make copies of the contents, the artistic works on these cassette tapes. You know what sometimes happened, though? What often happened when people tried to make copies? Every person who made a copy would get a lower quality of audio. And sometimes someone would make one copy, but then someone else would get a copy, a first-generation copy, and they would make second-generation copies from the first-generation copy. And every generation you went down in the copies, the audio quality just got worse and worse. Eventually, the thing was just terrible, okay? This was a bit of copy production. People want highest audio quality. So copies keep getting made, they're low quality, this makes people want to buy the authentic thing. That's good news for the artist. But notice, it's a little bit easier to make copies of this than to make copies of this. I mean, it's even smaller. It's easier to hide, okay? You get rated. But this wasn't the end of it, was it? Because what came next? Anyone know? These things right here. Like CD-ROM discs, okay? Digital discs. And I remember this is one of the few CDs I had. I was not big into music when I was young. But I had the Weird Al Food album disc. And I remember going to Best Buy. I had to drive in with my father specifically to get a handful of songs on this disc. You remember what this cost? What these CDs cost? You would get an album. So you'd get a handful of songs, not just one. What was the cost? Anyone remember? No? Yeah, $10 to $20 usually. Okay, I remember paying like $15, I think. All right, 15. Okay, $15. But with these discs, copyright got weaker still. Okay, these were digital optical discs. So you could often put these actually not just into a CD player, but you could put them into a CD-ROM player in a computer. And there were a lot of devices out there and a lot of software that could kind of read these discs, sometimes even write them. And once you got the data off of the disk onto your file system on a computer, oh my goodness, okay? You have transcended the physical realm. You are digital now. And even back then, digital was kind of cheap, okay? Easy to transmit. So this setup, when we lived in this era, this was a very nice era for artists, in certain ways. $15 a pop. Not too bad, right? And the artist, depending on the deals they had with their publisher, their label, maybe they got a fraction of that, maybe a bigger fraction, but $15. And copies were being made, but it was hard to make them and it was hard to get them, okay? So lots of people buying lots of CDs. Nice. Not too bad, huh? What's up?
In my country, that was really, really easy to copy.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was cheap.
Which country?
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. Awesome. Very cool. So in different places, right, different media meant different things. In the USA, there were still some legal protections that worked okay-ish. And the devices for copying stuff like CDs, it was possible. It was getting even easier, but it still wasn't quite as easy as it was about to become. All right? So we had an era where everything kind of made sense for a lot of artists. And I mean that in that, it made a lot of sense mentally. It also made a lot of money, okay? Which is good news. But it would be a real shame if some uncaring technology came through and changed this, right? Do you know how the internet kind of came to be? What was the initial purpose of the internet? Large networks? It kind of came from the military. The idea during the Cold War was that we needed kind of some backup communication systems in case a lot of infrastructure was knocked offline. How can we communicate with simple text messages and stuff like that? The military does not care if it bulldozes the music industry. Technology is going to be pushed forward by it, okay? And the music industry will have to adapt. So things started to change. A huge disruption was right around the corner, the internet. And this graph from Pew Research Center kind of shows how in the mid-2000s, the internet really started to become ubiquitous. We had quite a few people with dial-up. Dial-up is really slow. It doesn't have very good bandwidth. And so downloading music, sending music takes quite a while. But we see that broadband, higher quality, okay, much more data per minute, starts to really rock and roll and take off kind of in that mid-2000s range, where we're getting close to half of households having access to it. That is a huge deal. This makes certain things possible that weren't possible before. You start to see services and applications that are a little bit controversial popping up. Okay, LimeWire. Has anyone heard that word before? That name? Not that many of you. Okay, every year that goes past and I give this lecture, fewer hands are going to go up. And Stephanie and I end up feeling older and older, right? So, you should just raise your hands no matter what. Make us feel better. Okay, LimeWire is a service for kind of sharing digital files and in particular music across the internet. And it is free. You've got movies on here. You've got musical files on here. It looks like you've got applications on here. And it is free. You're not really paying for it at all. Certainly, you're not paying the artists. all right? We see here a huge weakening of copyright happening due to the internet. And laws can be whatever they want to be. Information, as it turns out, loves to be free. Especially when it becomes easy to make copies, it becomes super hard to contain those copies. So other sites start to pop up and become quite famous. I think in 2003, we see the Pirate Bay launch. Okay? And I have a feeling a few of you in here, at least, have sailed the high seas at least once in your life. And if you do this, you will discover just how crazy easy it is to get basically anything you want. And it's actually kind of frightening. All right? If I'm an artist and I just spent years making my game, and I immediately see that my game is now a torrent online, super easy, takes just seconds to get my game. It's been cracked, DRM's gone, and now people are loving my game, but they don't want to pay me for it. That's it's quite difficult, isn't it? Not sure what to think about that. Feel like you've been stabbed in the back, actually. Okay, very, very painful. For those people in the mid-2000s who didn't want to sail the high seas or use LimeWire and risk getting a virus, when I was growing up, LimeWire was kind of a spooky thing. It was a little bit taboo. It's part of what got people excited about it. For me, I was like, oh, I don't want to get a virus, right? You had lots of stories of people losing their entire computers and all their files to using LimeWire, and that definitely happened. iTunes provides a solution. Apple, Steve Jobs, if anyone is going to convince a bunch of the big labels to offer a song for $1, it's Steve Jobs. And I know there are interviews out there and documentaries and memoirs about how he was able to do this. You'd think the big audio and music companies would not go for something like this. But Steve was, as we learned in the very first lecture, very charismatic person. If this were an RPG, the charisma stat will be maxed out. And you can do some crazy things when that thing is maxed out, depending on the game. iTunes shows up, and it provides kind of a one-stop shop for managing your music, but also acquiring new music. What's more, you've truly ascended from the physical realm at this point. If you have an iPod that breaks, are you doomed? Did you just lose everything? No, it's in the cloud. You can just download it, right? And you are fine. Safe and friendly. Individual songs for only $1. That's right. Bundling just got wrecked. Now you don't need to buy an album where you only want 1 or 2 songs. Okay? And now it's a la carte. Very nice and consumer friendly. Very efficient. Very cheap. Only the best songs are making money now. Does that remind you of anything? You remember how streaming broke out? It's like, Netflix has the few shows that I want. It's super cheap. I'm just going to buy Netflix. And now Netflix is super expensive and it has all the stuff I don't care about. Interesting. Cable bundles where it had a very similar kind of technology consumer pattern as music distribution in this era. It's kind of interesting. So, safe and friendly, individual songs for $1 sounds like Nirvana, right? For consumers, it kind of was. But for artists, there was kind of a scary time, okay? Prince was famous. We talked a bit about him, famous for kind of being anti-internet in those early days. Eventually, all his stuff ends up on there, but he was very nervous about it, and other people were as well, okay? They saw this approach as exploitative and very much harming most artists. It harmed artists by taking music and making it really cheap. Well, that sounds like a great thing, right? I mean, music to more people. It's more affordable. It gets to more ears. Well, that's if you're a consumer, right? There's the other side of that coin, okay? How can you possibly pay your rent to keep making music if you are selling your songs for $1? It's really hard, right? It's very, very, very hard. We went from an era where a handful of songs was bringing in $15 into an era where a song is now commanding only $1. And if you were used to making $15, but now you only have a couple songs people actually want. You're only making $1 from those gems of your portfolio. Ouch. This is bad news for you. I still don't quite understand how Steve Jobs was able to do this. Okay? That was a special, special dude. Anyway. But soon, musicians would look at this as the golden era. Remember when we could get $1 for our best song? Because what happened? What happened not long after that? In 2025, all of you who raised your hand a few minutes ago have some splaining to do. Okay? Because how much do you pay for a song that you go find on YouTube? Yeah, the artist is lucky if you didn't install ad block, okay? And you pay with a little bit of your time. Maybe you're sending them a couple cents, a penny, maybe, for a few views, right?
And that's not even including people who re-upload your song and interpolate it to a different key so that the algorithm doesn't notice for some reason.
Exactly, right? So you upload a song, there's going to be about like 100 different versions of that song, if it's at all popular. Remixes, people riffing on it, that's cool, right? And then just flat out re-uploads. Nintendo loves to wait for a few years for a channel to upload all their music and then ban that channel for copyright infringement, at which point all the music is back up in about a week on a similarly named channel. Nintendo then waits a few more years to swat that one, and you wonder why they bothered, don't you? Oh well. But basically these days, the situation has completely collapsed from that golden era of selling music on a kind of premium per song basis, right, or album basis. The situation for artists completely rolled over and died, didn't it? Well, not quite, because music is different these days, but it's still around. In fact, it's quite big these days. Okay? But how did any artists survive? How did any musicians survive this turbulence at all? What techniques did they have? These will become important for us later. So what can you think of? If you are a musician these days, and you make good music, but you got to pay the rent, what can you do? This is very close to home. In fact, Michigan Stadium just booked a deal for another big moneymaker for a musician. Yes?
So if that was something with the labels to do, it's
what can a label do? If Nintendo can't keep their music off YouTube, what's a label going to do? Yes?
Physical stuff. You sell collector's items for your fans. Concerts,
Okay.
tours that you go to.
Concerts. Ooh, yeah. All right. Well, we can't control information because information wants to be free these days. And unfortunately, our music is information. It's just a bunch of bits. But you know what we can control? Our physical bodies, okay? Where are we going to be? Who are we going to talk to, all right? And as it turns out, people will pay for that. They'll pay a lot for that, actually. Concerts and tours are a humongous, ridiculous moneymaker for a lot of artists, and they don't need to be this big, okay? Have you seen the ticket prices for the latest T Swift concerts? Oh my God, okay? Holy cannoli. These things are crazy. We got people on the Toronto subreddit losing their mind because they're about to pony up $1,000, okay? More than $1,000, $3,000 minimum to sit in the nosebleeds to like maybe squint and see something that vaguely looks like the person whose music you listen to. Okay, like vaguely, you're not sure. You can't confirm it at that distance, but maybe, right? Yes.
There's also like because you don't own a lot of stuff like with streaming services, like with events and with merch, you feel like you're getting a piece of something, right?
Yeah, something a bit more permanent, right? Something a bit special, right? If it's physical, then it's not just another copy of that song. So you're getting an experience. You're getting a bunch of photos. You went to that T Swift concert. I always think it's interesting to just like confirm that someone you've seen 1,000 times on the internet is real. So I was walking through, this was like 2018 or 2019 or something. I'm walking through downtown Seattle. It's kind of early in the morning. And I'm just like, I'm going to PAX Dev, which is one of the conferences, game dev conferences in downtown right before PAX happens. If you can't get tickets to PAX, by the way, get tickets to PAX Dev because they include PAX West tickets. Anyway, which are usually sold out. So I'm just kind of walking up there and I'm kind of bummed, you know, the conference is like, I'm not enjoying it that much this year. The talks are a bit boring, you know. So I'm just kind of walking by and I see a store. It's kind of interesting. It's called the Amazon 4-star store. I think that's what it's called. It's been a while. And it's a store whose premise is we're going to have a physical store like a Walmart, except it's only going to be products on Amazon that were rated at 4 stars and above by a lot of people. So like, you know, basically like, hey, let's see how this goes. Physical, right? Walmart's trying to go digital and Amazon's trying to go physical. They're racing to become each other so that they can defeat each other, right? Anyway, it turns out I'm there and I'm walking up and it's like 7:59 a.m. And I have no idea of the significance of this. It also happens to be the first day this store has ever opened to the public. It's like the grand debut. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it looks like people are gathering there. There's a tiny line. I just kind of walk up, a very tiny line. I walk up and it hits 8 a.m. in this shining, super smiley, energetic, bald dude bursts through the door. And he's got this really familiar face, but I can't quite place it. And everyone's getting photos with him for some reason. You just kind of walk in and look at him and, oh, that's Jeff Bezos right there. He's actually real. Yeah. And I'm looking at, yeah, that's him. Like, yep, the exact, like, crazy, slightly spooky smile, right? One interesting thing as well is that I'm like one of the first people to walk. I should have gotten a selfie. I really should have. Now it's just burned in my memory. I guess that's okay. But I was one of the first people to go in the store. And I walk in the store, I'm looking around, and there's already a bunch of people there shopping. It looks like they're shopping. They're looking at the items and stuff. Except they're all like 6'8" gigantic football-style players, right? Football people, okay? And I'm like, oh, this is weird. Okay. And then like Jeff is like, you know, freaking out and being all like super happy about the store's debut. And then like within a few moments, he walks out the back door, like down the hallway. Every gigantic shopper in that store follows him like, pew. Oh. Now, okay. I know what just happened. That was his personnel, right? Bodyguards. They're in disguise. Anyway. There is a genuine, in that moment, I realized personally that there is a genuine intrigue and value to confirming someone you've seen 1,000 times online is real. That's them, okay? And that proximity was really special. I like to tell that story, right? Anyway, so there's some value there to selling tickets. Okay, and it doesn't need to be a big show like this. You can have a more intimate, smaller show if you're a smaller artist. You show up at a downtown Ann Arbor club, okay, and you've got a couple CDs. You're going to sell some copies. People are going to pay tickets to come see you in the flesh and enjoy your music live, organically, not recorded, unscripted. People like to feel that something is human. And when you go to a concert, you hear the mistakes. And those aren't mistakes anymore. It's just like it's a human, right? I feel like that's really meaningful these days especially, and probably going to become more meaningful as well. I don't want to extrapolate to Monday's lecture, but you know what one of my favorite things ever to do is? Like I can go online and get any art I want. I can literally tell GPT to make me some art, and I can get a mediocre version of whatever I want. okay? But my favorite thing, I think, is to go to these comic conventions and actually go walk through the artist alley, look at all the art styles, and you see the artist there. And you can actually ask them about their cool pieces. I really like this character. How do you do this character, right? And you can actually commission them on the spot. See, I've got $50 right here. Like, will you draw me this cool character? And it doesn't even have to be good. Just try it, right? And then you come back a few hours later, they finished it, and they're telling you about all the hard parts. Like, yeah, this character has a really cool nose that I haven't seen in a cartoon art style before, but I tried it like this and it didn't work. Here's the sketch, right? And then I did it like this and it was really great. That stuff matters to me. I think it matters to other people too. But it's hard for me to know that for sure. When I see things like this and these ticket prices, I think that's data. People want this kind of stuff. They want the human interaction. And that gives me a lot of hope for the future of not just music, but visual art as well. Okay? So it turns out, beyond things like concerts, which I think are the obvious way for musicians to make money in 2025, not everyone has a super big presence. Not everyone is an extrovert, right? Like, this would be terrifying for me, going out to a concert like this. I can't even imagine doing that. Some of you are very brave. But multimedia bundles is what I'm calling them. As it turns out, music, like singles, okay, have lost their monetary value. In some ways, it's sad. In other ways, it's really nice. You can be dirt poor. You can be from a country that doesn't have a whole lot of resources, and if you got an internet browser and like a Raspberry Pi, you can listen to some really, really great music, right? But it turns out if you take that music, which had almost no monetary value alone, and you bundle it and make it a part of something a bit bigger, with some logic, with some art, okay? Suddenly, Freedom Planet, an amazing game. What a game. Okay, has amazing art, pixel art, music, a half-decent story, very excellent gameplay. This is like a $15 game. We're back, okay? But instead of having a bunch of musical tracks together, we also threw in some logic and we threw in some art, and suddenly we're back to a decent place, okay, where we can actually make a premium business model work. How much does Freedom Planet cost these days? That game has been out for like a decade, I think. Let's check it out. This game's on Switch and all the consoles. It's on Steam. That's where I bought it. Look at all those great reviews. $15, still $15. Wow. Galaxy Trail is saying this is a premium product and you're gonna pay up. Okay, good for them. Okay. But wow, this is super choppy. The game looks way better, by the way, than what I'm showing. Okay. So I'm very laggy right now. But multimedia bundling. So if you can make music for a game or for a film, for something, for an exhibition, you will discover that, hey, we actually have gotten some of our seller's power back, okay? Suddenly we're back in a seller's market and we can actually make a go at making a living. Okay. Often, at least for kind of indie musicians, this is paid up front. So, for instance, you know what rate I paid for music a few years ago? The last time I hired music to be done for one of my games, I'm going to let you listen to it soon. I paid about $100 per minute for that audio. And I feel like that's a little bit low these days. But for the time, I thought it was a pretty good mix of price and quality. Sometimes, especially if you're a very top tier, very in-demand musical artist, royalties are involved as well. So you might get a percentage of the money made for the game. I think this is more common in the big Hollywood productions for films and stuff like that. This is a game that, unfortunately, I haven't finished yet. The big problem with this game is I think this game looks surprisingly good. Like, the characters are really cool, the units, the art style is great, the environment is not good. I need to improve that. And the gameplay wasn't very good either, and that was the killer. I wasn't able to figure out how to make the gameplay sing. It was just kind of mediocre. It's a mediocre tower defense game. That's why the project isn't finished yet. But this beach game I hired Leilani Wilson, Woofle, online to do the music for this game. She's a wonderful, just spectacular indie freelance musician. She actually did the music for Freedom Planet, and that's why I went out and tried to hire her. And she provided music like this. And it was amazing how fast she could make new music. It blew me away. I would get a track from her over Discord, and I would say, wow, this sounds really good, but like this tone at the end here isn't quite what I want. And minutes later, she would have a totally different ending to that song. It's like, wow, incredible. I want you to listen to a bit of this. I like this music. I think it's really good. Ask you, would you pay $100 per hour for this? Because I'll tell you, I definitely would. Let's listen to it. I did. Wait, can't hear anything. Oh, I always forget. So when you're becoming a pilot, we always have checklists because there are about 1,000 different things you need to do to an old plane made in like the 70s to get it ready to safely fly. Here, I feel up here you have to 5 different things you have to remember to do. And if you don't, the audio doesn't work. It's a good setup though. Okay, here we go. Remember, this is a beach-themed game. This is for battle. So when enemies are rushing at you, this is what you hear. This is not the final version of that song. The instruments changed a little bit in the final version, but I couldn't find the final version. It's not very organized on this project, I think. I was not. Here's another song that she did. This is the victory music. This is actually the final victory music, I think. I like this a lot, too. There's a special feeling when really good music comes over Discord, and it's exactly what you wanted it to be. That's the kind of experience you have when you're working with freelancers and working with other members of the team. But absolutely amazing job, and I'm really ashamed that I wasn't able to get the game out with these assets. Maybe one day, though. So making music or making art for other projects, the thing is AI can get you a draft these days. But when you are making your game, you have something very, very particular you want. And AI is terrible at that right now, okay? It's kind of like a shotgun. It's just going to kind of spray and pray, and that's really an unsatisfying way to build stuff. Interacting with an artist like Woofle is much, much more engaging and much more worth your time, actually. And I would definitely pay that kind of money for music on my next project. Okay, so another final thing you can try that's a very interesting thing for musicians trying to make money is the topic of monetization platforms. And do you know what I'm talking about here? What could I be talking about? Think about it. What can you do if you are in a nasty situation and my work has been commoditized? It's worth $0, but people still want me to make it. Is there anything we can do? One of you said earlier, you can sell access, right? You've got fans, huh? Okay, you got fans. We can do something about that, right? I can't sell my music for any money. Maybe my games aren't mass market. They're too niche. I can't sell them for any money. But people still like them. Not enough people, but enough, quite a few. What can I do? Patreon. Bingo, Patreon, okay? And what do you sell on Patreon?
You can sell sometimes process, you can sell tools,
Yeah.
you can sell materials,
Yep.
you can sell the game,
Bingo.
you can sell
Special edition.
access.
Special editions, unlockable characters or costumes in a game. Rough drafts are huge. People who get really into your work, they want to see the process. That's super big for them. Custom stuff. There are artists who sometimes, if you're a certain tier, once a month they'll write you they'll draw you a really cute little sticker really quickly, right? Just as a thank you, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say mods. Sims mods especially.
Sims mods. That's awesome. That's super, super cool. So when you're a modder, when you're a fan artist, you can't sell that stuff, right, that you're making. But you can sell access to the process. And people who are really into it might support you out of their generosity, or they might support you because they want access to that process. There are stuff that you can sell, okay? Patreon is a huge one. And there are other services like Ko-Fi, Subscribestar. They're all kind of in the same venue, right, of letting you set up a subscription service with people who care about your work. An example right here is one of my favorite musical channels, QMU. Does anyone know what I'm talking about here? What's a good one that QMU does? What have they been doing lately? Okay, I like Maple Treeway, Coconut Mall. We got Pokemon stuff in here. Super Mario Galaxy remixes. Let's take a listen. Right? So if you look at this channel, this entire channel is mainly just kind of, remastering and remixing audio that was created by other people, right? But a lot of effort goes into that, and so it makes sense that they would get paid. They can't sell the music themselves, or they would get into big copyright trouble. So a Patreon provides a good method to do this. So that works really, really well. Another way is to run an NFT scam, okay? And this is kind of put here as a joke, but I think it kind of says something that these were a thing for a little while, okay? The basic idea behind the NFT scams was the idea that, hey, we've got these artists who are struggling to find a business model for their work in the 2020s. And there's a lot of desperation. It's a big disruption. A lot of very talented, hardworking people are desperate to grab onto something. And so that is fertile grounds for scams. When people are desperate, scams become very viable. So NFTs, if you forgot what they were, is kind of an interesting cryptocurrency blockchain situation where blockchain technology kind of allows someone to track ownership of a digital piece of software. Copyright is very, very weak for digital things, right? But the idea here was that we could kind of store your ownership of a piece of anything, a digital piece of anything, a file. And we can't prevent other people from accessing the file, but the blockchain can be used to just kind of help us remember who owns it as a community. It seems very silly, and it was. Most of that has died since. But here you can see a good example of what kind of scams were being run back 4 years ago, like in the early 2020s. Hey guys, is there anyone who had a successful NFT release? This is a subreddit called We Are the Music Makers, the process of making music. Wow, that's a really big subreddit, 3.8 million members. What do you think about NFTs in the music industry in general? Does it have a future? Is it just a bubble? What do you think? It's been one of the most interesting topics in the music business lately. I think, like crypto, it'll appeal to swindlers, rubes, and members of the echo chamber. I can't take it seriously at all. Bingo, right? Everyone is not down with it right now, and hopefully won't ever be. I'm not a working musician anymore. I'm a giggling enthusiast, and I might feel differently if I was still in the industry. But I think an NFT release is antithetical to everything I believe about music and art. Yes. So ethical questions about whether such a thing would even work at all. I don't think it would even technically. But what this tells us is that there is a desperation to find something that will keep the music production process alive. And that desperation is so strong sometimes that people fall victim to scams like this. So what's important to note, however, is that there are genuine ways that music makers have survived and artists have continued to rock and roll into 2025. Okay? It wasn't pretty. And a lot of people closed up shop, got different jobs, focused on other things, or moved their music production straight into the realm of their hobby instead of their profession, which is very sad. But they did manage to survive. And that's what's very interesting to me these days. Because disruption isn't just a 2025 or mid-2000s thing, okay? Here's what happens. It's been happening for pretty much all of history. Technology shows up. Artists suffer because it feels like that's just our thing, all right? And then the artists adapt, and that's the most optimistic moment. Then artists adapt and new technology shows up to raise new questions. Sometimes art becomes more accessible to the world. It becomes cheaper, and that's a good thing for consumers. That is also a difficult thing for artists, so we have to figure out what we're going to do. Okay? In the 2000s, we were hit very hard by digital distribution. Okay? In the 2010s, that's something we haven't really talked about. 2010s were an era where it didn't matter if you were a music maker, an art maker, or an indie game maker. Have you ever heard of something called the indie apocalypse? It occurred kind of in the mid to late 2010s when basically the proliferation of free off-the-shelf game engines like Unity and Unreal made it very, very easy to get your game out. That led to a flood and oversaturation of game products, and the market was struggling to raise people up, okay, struggling to find the best games, and that led to a lot of business models kind of falling apart, all right? That's still a problem today. And this wasn't just indie games either. Okay? As tools make something easier, more accessible, that's really great. You're democratizing music, right? Now we got a lot more competition. And, yes?
Was that kind of when shovelware became a thing?
Yeah. That's when, if you downloaded a game from Steam and you saw the Unity logo show up, you were like, oh no, here we go again. Okay? And often it was an asset flip. Have you ever heard the term asset flip? Very common in the world of games, small games, indie games, and game engines. In the 2010s, Unity wasn't just a game engine that it brought. It brought a community. It brought an asset store with a lot of free assets and a lot of cheap assets. So you could buy a few asset packs from the store, and suddenly you have an entire city full of models. Okay? We talk about commoditization of art and music. Commoditization of 3D is a very big thing as well. Okay? The problem, though, is that asset flips usually didn't have a cohesive art style. You want me to show you a game that was a famous asset flip? This was a rare example of an asset flip done right. Okay? This is a game called The First Tree. And you might not believe, yeah, the person who made the first tree is a YouTuber. And maybe I'll see him in here. But he was not a 3D modeler. The only expertise, I think he says the only expertise he brought to the game was he was a shader programmer, which is just about perfect if you're doing an asset flip, because that allows you to unify a bunch of different assets into a similar-ish art style. Anyway, watch this trailer and tell me if this looks like a cheap, low-effort asset flip to you.
Are you awake?
It was just a dream.
No, it's okay. Tell me what happened.
I saw a fox looking for missing cubs. And along the way, the land told my story. A path was illuminated before, and it led to something ancient. Something with answers. So she ran. It's a difficult path to the first tree, but each of us must eventually take it, including me.
Yeah, so asset flip, right? No, so if you go into the creation of the first tree, and actually I think I can find it real quick, there's a series. Development. How making indie games changed my life. David Wheel, 3.2 million views. Losing motivation. Here's how the game went viral. No time, no budget, no problem. Finishing the game. And really, really impressive. So the asset flips were basically the commodification of 3D art for the most part. And sometimes that made really great things happen, but what happened was Unity as an engine and indie games around this time developed a reputation for being really cheap cash grabs. Okay? A team would make a game for only a week, and they would buy a bunch of assets, throw them into a game without any care in the world, and then just create a nice bit of title art to trick people into buying it, and then they would put it up on all the stores and hope that they can sucker a handful of people into dropping a few $100. That's it. Make the next game the next week. A game per week. Nightmare. Okay? It kind of felt like the AI, Gen AI before Gen AI. Interesting. Yes?
I remember when it was a bit of a meme to call something like some other game Unity Edition.
Really?
I remember seeing that online, like Portal Unity Edition. It's like a
bad version.
Jokingly like a buggy version of Portal.
Interesting. I don't remember that.
It's really the reputation Unity had.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but I can believe it. I remember seeing an interview, but I don't know where, with the Unity leadership, where they speculated. So it used to be that you had to pay money. You could use Unity for free, but if you used the free version of Unity, before your game, it would show the Unity splash screen. It's still the case. I think anyone can turn it off now. It's free to turn off. I think so. It used to be the case that you had to pay money to Unity to turn off the thing that says this was made with Unity. Can you see a bit of a problem here? What happened was all the cheap games made by developers who didn't care had the Unity, this is made with Unity screen. And any game that put in effort and resources into development would turn it off. So the only time you knew that a game was made with Unity was when it was trash. Okay? Awful. Garbage. Anyway, so they've since changed that, and now you can just, whatever you want. Okay? You want it, you got it. Right? Okay, anyway. So in 2000s, digital distribution did a huge number on the artists, but they adapted. In 2010s, oversaturation and a proliferation of tools, really good tools, off the shelf, free, led to oversaturation and another big dent for artists, okay? But, down but not out, never out. 2020 is all about Gen AI. I didn't have to tell you that. And Gen AI is going to be a big topic when we come back on Monday and talk about the current state of the animation industry, because it is a bit of a bloodbath right now. But there are still people making a genuine go of it. And there's some really impressive success stories. A theme you're going to find throughout the entire course in our final lecture and in Monday's lecture is that indies seem to be running away with it a little bit. Okay? Where there is hope and inspiration, it's coming from small team, using tools efficiently and keeping costs low. Okay? Creating stuff that is funky and weird. All right? Disruption, the takeaway from today, and what I want you to always remember this, okay? Because times are always going to get tough, and if you don't remember this, you're not going to make it through. But disruption is not new. It's never fun, and artists have been dealing with this forever, okay? This is not the first time it's been looking, like we're going to get wiped out. And so the question that you should keep in mind is a lot of artists aren't going to make it through Gen AI, but a lot of artists will. And so how are we going to be the ones that do make it? All right? Make it through to the next disruption. Who knows what's going to happen in 2030 to make our artistic lives a pain in the butt. Okay? But you know it's coming. And I want to share a story with you. One final story. Okay? I want to share one final story with you. But actually, I'm going to unplug my screen so you can't see it. People watching online can see it. This is an EECS 440 lecture, okay? It's a story that I usually tell in EECS 440, but you're going to get it today. It's in my lecture, Tales from the Viz Studio. Here it is. Here we go. When I was working at Electronic Arts HQ is in San Francisco, kind of. It's actually in Redwood City, San Carlos, basically, south of the city. And one great thing about San Francisco is that if you're into technology, well, there's a hackathon, and new big technology is releasing every single day of the week. And you can be at a hackathon every day of the week if that's what you want. Well, I have a story about that. So, myself and some EA colleagues went to San Francisco in 2015, and we were going to a Gear VR hackathon. Does anyone remember the Gear VR? Anyone remember the Google Cardboard? Well, this was Samsung's attempt to take down the Google Cardboard. Okay? Imagine your chief rival being Google Cardboard. Like, that's just a funny board meeting, right? We got to defeat this thing. It's just a piece of cardboard. We can defeat this. No. Samsung was defeated in the end by cardboard. So it's 2015. I'm working at EA, and some colleagues, just a couple colleagues and myself, are going to downtown San Francisco for a hackathon. Really fun. And really, really cool area. If you can get a chance to get out there at some point, if you're a technologist, this is just a great place to be. The Gear VR looks like this. It's a headset that is really cheap, but that's not a bad thing. That makes it accessible. And what you do is you don't have hardware coming from a computer. You don't have an onboard CPU or GPU. What you do is you take your phone and you stick your phone right on the end of it like this. So you're just going to strap it in, and your phone becomes the computer. The display gets cut in half by the software, and each side of the screen gives you a slightly different view, like two different eyes into the scene. That's how the VR works. And we get to this Gear VR hackathon, and they announce, all right, everyone, we're going to start, and do your best. Why? Because we've got a $10,000 grand prize up for grabs. Ooh. Oh, yeah. I'd been to many hackathons before, but this one I knew I was like in the capital of hackathons, okay? And so we wanted to win, right? This is a good prize. Let's go get that thing. Even split 3 ways. That's a nice chunk of change. Let's go. And so we started working quite hard. And the Gear VR device had just come out like the previous week. The developer SDK had just come out with like its first version. And it was awful. This was a 24-hour hackathon. But we were trying hard. We couldn't get it to run. in about the first 5 hours. We're just sitting around the table. We're like bugging the engineers who are on site. Like they can't figure out how to get it to run. We can't figure out how to get it to run. We're trying to make a game in Unity that uses the Gear VR, and it's just a disaster. Okay, I remember we go back to EAHQ and we're like in one of the office rooms. We're just like, man, it's like 2 a.m. Like we're gonna give this up. We made a little bit of progress, but still broken. And so we kind of worked through the night, and it was brutal. Okay, it was absolutely brutal. And the technology was failing, but eventually we finally broke through. And like sleep deprived, it's running. It's running. We can see something. Good. The Unity app actually runs. It actually seems to be working. Okay? Horrific nightmare. By the time we get it even working, the thing turning on and showing our app, our Unity game, how much time do you think we have left? We got like 4 hours remaining, and we're sleep deprived. This is bad news, okay? We're in such bad shape, it's like we can't even possibly win this thing. And so we are just going crazy, and we're just trying to get this game out. Anything. Well, the Gear VR on the other side of the thing here, it has a temple touchpad, which is really cool. And it turns out, if you've got a touchpad like this, we were doing this, and we're like, wow, you look like Cyclops from the X-Men. And thinking, yeah, we should make a game where you're like Cyclops, and you're like shooting, you're looking at stuff, you're shooting the stuff, tapping your temple, and that's like as much as we think we might be able to accomplish in 4 hours, sleep deprived. So we grind and we do this. And I hope you will excuse my copyright infringement in this video clip, because it's going to be pretty blatant. This is not VR footage, so you're going to have to imagine what the VR version looked like. This was in the Unity editor. You are chasing a UFO, don't ask why, and you can shoot blocks out of your way. If you touch a block, we whip you into the air spinning, which is not a very nice thing to do to people in VR, by the way. Just not. I'm not sure why I did this. Maybe I was angry at the Gear VR people for doing this to me the last 24 hours. Maybe they deserved it. I don't know. This is Cube Runner Chaos. So we violated the Cube Runner copyright. And then we violated, well, just listen to the music. You'll hear what we violated there. Oh, wait a second. I want to show you this. Let's go. I want to show you this full screen so you can get the full effect when it spins. What? No. What? Pardon me. Hold on. Lecture's almost finished. All right, almost finished. I'm just going to, hold on. Yeah, there we go. Okay, mission complete. Bingo. Okay, here we go. Come on. Okay, and hey. Okay. Okay, you're chasing the UFO. So we just randomly drop blocks from the UFO, which means we have no way of preventing them there from being an impossible situation. So the beam you can shoot with your Cyclops visor is also important for helping you clear out our broken game design, and maybe it makes it possible to get through. Anyway, so you can see, like, this is kind of a disaster. We're violating tons of copyright, and the game's making our players sick, and the game's super basic. It looks hideous, okay? It's kind of cool. It's fun to shoot things with your Cyclops tapping the temple technique. But it's a disaster. It's a complete disaster. What do you expect on 4 hours, right? Well, we won the whole thing. And it wasn't even close. We crushed our competition. It was an annihilation. And we got that 10 grand. Okay? And you know why? You know why this was able to win? This is in the capital of software on the entire planet Earth, and we were able to win a big-time hackathon with this piece of junk. For that moment, for that one moment, like we might have been the best hackathoners in the best city for software on Earth. It's a proud moment with this piece of garbage. Why? How could it be possible that we won with this?
It's playable.
Exactly. No one else in the entire event was able to get the technology to turn on. So every other opponent of ours had drawings of what they would have made if the technology would have worked. But we had actual working product. The reason I bring this up, it was very painful. Okay? It probably took, a couple weeks off my life at least. But we were the only team that was able to adapt to a very painful situation. Okay? A very ambiguous situation where even the creators of the technology were not able to really help us much. And because we survived a painful, disruptive situation, all of our opponents were gone. So I want you to never forget this. When the going gets very painful for you, it's not just painful for you. And if you manage to be the survivor, you will be the one who enjoys all the spoils. Okay? You'll be the only one who makes it through the desert into that green, lush valley. Maybe the valley isn't as lush and green and fruitful as you had hoped, but you're the only one there. And that's a pretty good situation for you. I'm not talking about for everyone. For everyone, it can be pretty nasty, okay? But do think of yourselves sometimes, all right? Don't be selfish all the time, but be selfish a little bit of the time, okay? You got to take care of yourself a bit. By the way, this 10 grand said, congratulations, here's 10 grand in the form of a JavaScript bootcamp scholarship. I already know JavaScript. Damn it. You lied to me. And then they're like, technically we didn't. You didn't read the contract. Anyway, they also gave us a few $1,000s in Amazon gift cards. Those things are basically cash. Okay, that's not so bad. Anyway, that's the situation. I won because the ecosystem, the disruption, took out all of my opponents, okay? So when the going gets really tough, remember that. If you can hang tough and adapt when other people can't, then you will be the ones who inherit the future. So I want that to be you. I want that for you, okay? So hopefully that'll keep you going when times get tough, because we got some tough times coming. In fact, I would say they're already here. But who knows? Maybe the valley on the other side will be a little bit greener than we think, all right? A lot of pessimism right now, and that makes me suspicious, okay? All right, does anyone have any questions? Because next time, on next time's edition, this is kind of a short lecture today, on next week's edition, Terminator's here, okay? AI is here, and we're going to talk about how to survive the Gen AI disruption that is happening right now. Okay, we're going to talk about other things as well. And I'll give you a hint. One of the best things that Stephanie and I, the Duderstadt Assistant Director, think, she's an expert video game industry artist. And we're literally talking, it's part of why I was late. We're talking about this for you. But how do you survive? We think there's going to be a bit of a renaissance for generalists. So after you learn Blender, what are you going to do next? What are you going to learn next? What part of the pipeline can you learn? Maybe you focus on textures. You're going to get a bit better at that. You're going to learn things like Substance Painter and Substance Designer. Get crazy good at materials. Maybe now that you have some Blender and some Unity knowledge, it's time to really make those models shine. You're going to jump into Unreal Engine. Okay, forget this Unity stuff. All right, that's for indies. I'm serious, okay? And you're going to jump into Unreal Engine, but maybe pick up Godot. There's a lack of people who know Godot these days. And Godot is super huge in the gambling industry, believe it or not. You know why? If you know what Godot is a free and open source public domain game engine. Unity is not public domain. Unreal Engine is not public domain. Tim Sweeney doesn't want you using Unreal? Unlucky. Okay? Yoink. You have to go use something else. Why would a casino company be very interested in a public domain game engine?
So they don't have to pay any money.
Yeah, no royalties. That's a win in pretty much any situation. But a casino company in particular, you can't yoink away a public domain asset. It's free forever. It's the public's now. So anyway, no, I'm not telling you to go work at a casino. If you want to, go for it. But knowing these different technologies and being a generalist in many different parts of the 3D process, as far as I can tell, that is how some of our 3D artists are going to make it, okay? They're going to make it to the next disruption. They're going to shine when everyone else is failing, all right? Okay, any questions or comments? I am not an expert in the world of animation. Game dev is my thing. But I hope that this was at least a little bit enjoyable for you. And I hope you'll move forward with that example of the music industry and what they went through in mind, okay? And isn't it just crazy what we put the music industry and all those amazing artists through? And every time I'm on YouTube listening to their incredible work for free, I'm like, I did this. I'm the bad guy. Damn. That's how it happens, isn't it? Well, just keep that in mind. They survived. We're going to survive as well. Okay. For the next, I think, hour and a half, since we're starting a little bit early, I'll be around. I will play your game. I'll talk to you about your idea. I'll tell you what components you might want to use for your idea. So if you want that, then please raise your hand, come up and grab me. And yeah, I wish you luck on this project. Try and get something done this week, okay? So that you don't get buried in that final week. Use this project to procrastinate your other projects a tiny bit, okay? I've been seeing a lot of students successfully do that, and it's healthier than procrastinating with Netflix, okay? Procrastinate with another course's project. Okay, all right, everyone online, I will see you later. Bye-bye.